The Marvels. Okay, The Marvels 2023, a Marvel movie, The Marvels. So there is there's a scene in The Marvels where the three titular Marvels, you've got Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, and don't worry, they say Captain Marvel like 170 times in this movie. If you want to know why she's called Captain Marvel, don't watch the movie called Captain Marvel. And don't watch Avengers Endgame. You have to look this up on Wikipedia to figure this out, which is always a good sign. That's what you want from a movie, is you need to look things up afterward. But they say Captain Marvel over and over and over again. Every time I'm embarrassed for whoever has to say it. But Captain Marvel, and then also Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. So they land their spaceship on a CGI planet. And they walk down the ramp of their spaceship. And they have a very important and pointed discussion about what's happened in the movie so far. They're like, hey guys, we've been in this movie for 45 minutes now. And, this movie's called The Marvels. And this MacGuffin is over here and we have to go get it. We have to put it over into the bleep bloop portal over there, or else a great something cataclysm is going to come. So yeah, obviously very important conversation. None of it, or I should say all of it, filmed in coverage. Trust me. All of it in coverage, much of it from a great distance. You will be damned if you see the actress who's speaking the lines, if you will see her mouth move. It's all reaction shots because the direction on the day was guys, just sort of gesture at each other and just kind of make vague, inscrutable reactions to each other. And I don't know, we'll figure it all out. We'll do some ADR later. That's always been the Marvel method. Everything, a lot of coverage, everything kind of just assembled in post. And for a long time, this worked. They got away with it. It worked pretty well. But I mean, just the wheels are off the vehicle at this point. The other thing is that this scene, they probably told the actresses you're going to land on a super crazy cool cosmic planet or whatever. So yeah, just kind of act like you're on a lava planet or in a bed of stars. But in the final movie, the actual environment they're in is a CGI wheat field. And it's not even a good looking CGI wheat field. It literally looks like a Zoom background. So it's just you get the sense watching this movie that everything is just kind of shrug. I don't know. Should we make a decision or should we just hold off on making a decision? What environment should they land on? How about they land in some wheat? The Marvel method for a long time has been, from the top down, very hands-on producer in Kevin Feige. Directors on individual Marvel movies, their main job, and this is reported, the main job is you work with the actors. You create a sense of fun, create compelling characters, get good performances out of actors, give these characters a sense that they have real relationships, that they mean something to each other. And again, this has worked really well for a long time, but at this point, it's just not working, folks. The comparison that people always make with the MCU is McDonald's. McDonald's, you know what you're going to get from McDonald's. You're not going to get a beautiful gourmet meal, but sometimes there's nothing more satisfying than, a cheeseburger from McDonald's. So the reporting on the behind the scenes drama of the Marvels made it seem like this might finally be the movie that is not a McDonald's hamburger. It's I don't know. It's a bad fast food hamburger. But it's not. This movie does not feel like a catastrophe while you're watching it. I don't think really any MCU movies have felt that way, even when they suck. I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania earlier this year, I hated it, but it's not while I was watching it, I was I'm watching an unfinished movie. Nobody knows what they're doing anymore. And the Marvels is better than that. It all goes down smooth. It's just that I'm sick of this shit. And I don't like it anymore. So this is not the fault of, well, here's who, this movie stinks. But here's whose fault it's not. I don't want to put any blame on Nia DaCosta, the director, on the stars, on Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, or Iman Vellani. They're all doing what they can. But if we continue with the McDonald's metaphor, if you bring in a very talented chef or very talented employees, cooks, by design, they're not supposed to make a difference. By design, every individual is supposed to be replaceable. This is a system. I mean, directors are supposed to come in and work with the actors. But the problem is, Uh, there are no decisions. There's no grounding in these characters anymore because there's so many unresolved, unsettled plans for where they're supposed to go in the future that no director can come in and make a strong choice about who a character is or what they want. So you can't really get anything specific or interesting out of them. The result is that everybody just kind of quips at each other. This if you've watched any Marvel thing, especially the Marvel Disney Plus streaming series, it's just endless quips at each other because that's the only the space will only allow you to do that. And it's just like fun. We're having fun. We're making quips at each other. What's your superhero nickname? You don't have a superhero nickname. You don't have a catchphrase. Have you even led a team, Captain Marvel? That's all they can do. So again, I don't blame director Nia DaCosta. You're not being set up to do anything, to do what you do best. And I do think she's a talented director. Her movie Little Woods is really good. And I look at that movie and think that movie is about, a small handful of characters and their relationships with each other, their resentments toward each other, the responsibility they feel toward each other versus what they feel to themselves. Like, she did a great job there, and there's so much room in the Marvels for a story like that, especially in the relationship between Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau. Like, it's right there for you, but Marvel's not interested in that. Marvel's not interested in humans, which is, so how are you going to get anything interesting or compelling out of these really talented actors? I think that people say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so successful because it's interconnected. And the interconnection, I think, is only that's a downstream effect of having so many characters who people like and people liking the relationships these characters have with each other. And because those relationships carry over into different movies, that's why people like the interconnection. But it's not the interconnected nature in and of itself. You have to start from a grounding of liking these people and of really understanding who they are. And it was a lot easier when there were way fewer of them, when there was just Iron Man and Captain America. And you just had the whole, of eternity in front of you to go wherever you want to go. But these people are so constrained in what they can do at this point. For the longest time, the thing about Marvel movies that most people seem to agree was, yeah, the action for the most part is not great, especially there'll be a big CGI goop fest in the third act that will probably have been, prevised years ahead of time, even before a director came aboard. And the director of the individual movie has no actual say on how the big action set piece proceeds. But at least the in-between stuff will be good. At least you'll like that. But everything is pulled so thin now, and all there is just, quote fun, unquote, so that happened, smirking, this is all kind of dumb, isn't it? That's all you have to hold on to at this point. And Marvel knows this, and they know that people are getting fatigued with all of this. Superhero fatigue, I mean, you can't deny it at this point. And of course it was going to happen. How could this go on forever? How could a movie series be the most popular thing just indefinitely? Like nothing is. The thing I always compare it to is professional wrestling, specifically WWE, which had, in the late 90s, when it was still WWF, had the high point of cultural relevance, of mainstream popularity. And they've been chasing that ever since. Now, they're never going to get it back. There's almost nothing they can do to make that happen again, because a lot of the reasons it happened were beyond their control. They involve cultural taste, they involve technology, consumer behavior, and a similar thing is happening with Marvel. You're not going to be able to get people to flock to your movies the way they did 5 or 10 years ago. And a lot of that is because of the success you had. You've sort of trained audiences to behave differently with the streaming series. You've made people feel like this all matters a lot less than it did. And there's nothing that can happen in an individual movie that's going to seem that important, because I've seen so many, quote unquote important things happen before. Similarly with wrestling, I mean, what WWE, always tries to do is we'll bring back the guys that you loved from the late 90s. Stone Cold Steve Austin is coming back for WrestleMania this year. The Rock will be back next year. And you even see reporting about Marvel trying to bring back Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans at this point. It's like, yes, of course that's what they're going to try to do. And the inevitable thing they're going to try to do is just buy Warner Brothers and just mash up DC with Marvel. I'm certain that'll happen at some point. At this point, they know people are tired of the really long running times of Marvel movies. Every Marvel movie is 2.5 hours at least. So they're like, all right, the Marvels, this movie's 1 hour, 45 minutes long. Now, once upon a time, a 1 hour, 45 minute movie was, that was like, hey, you're on solid ground there. You got something going. But now it's like, oh God, that's not enough time to do anything. And you feel it watching this movie. You feel the studio behind the scenes be like, go faster, have fun, high energy. You're having fun. Go. There's no time. This is so rushed and yet so little happens. There was YouTuber Lindsay Ellis a few years ago made a video about the Transformers movies, about why it's so hard to remember anything that happens in a Transformers movie. And a lot of that has to do with just the filmmaking, with throwing so much at you on screen that you just kind of check out. And that is really, really happening in this movie. It is so hard to grab onto anything or to remember anything after the instant it happens. And this script, this plot is just filler fetch quest. Go get this, bring it to that, or else, this catastrophe will happen. And then I've seen this so many times. I know how this goes. I can close my eyes and just hit play in my brain and figure out what's all going to happen. But the story, so much as it exists in this movie, is that Carol, Monica, and Kamala, they get entangled with each other somehow, so that whenever any of them uses their powers, they swap places with the other. This is a minor nuisance to them at best, but it, pushes them together so that they have to go on their quest. So how are these three actresses? They're doing what they can. I think Teyonah Parris is actually very impressive. I don't want to sound weird, but just as a physical presence, as a fighter, she's very compelling. Like even when she's, in the big CGI goop fests, just the way she carries herself in fights, it's very captivating. I wish, give her a John Wick movie or something. She'd be great. Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. I have not watched the Miss Marvel series because I'm not watching Disney Plus series anymore, but she's very charming, and I'm sure that having the show gave her a grounding in her character that the other two just don't have. Brie Larson, on the other hand, and again, this is not her fault because she's a great actress. I mean, she can be an electric performer, but this is not a character, and it has never been. And she has said as much, like when she filmed Avengers Endgame, even though that came out after Captain Marvel, she had not filmed Captain Marvel and didn't know anything about her character. And I feel like still nobody knows anything about this character. At least in Captain Marvel 1, there was this idea like, okay, Carol, has her memory erased, has these extraordinary powers, doesn't know who she is, but knows she has sort of an underlying anger, or at least intensity, and everybody's telling her, no, suppress that. You're so angry, keep your anger down, keep your emotions down. But in the end, embracing the emotions, embracing the intensity, embracing the anger is how she's allowed to be so powerful. And that is at least, a compelling idea. That's something to hold on to when you have sort of a, metatextual idea about like women in the workplace being told you're too emotional. And so at least you had that, but there's nothing like that in the Marvels. There is, the question about how to make a character like this interesting. This character is basically Superman, and it's hard to make Superman interesting. This is a god. How do you make a god interesting? Well, there are hints of it. There's hints of ways to make Carol / Captain Marvel interesting in her relationship with Monica Rambeau, who she knew as a young child, and then she left to go become Captain Marvel, become a god. And then Monica, as an adult, resents her for never coming back. And it's like, yeah, there's some juice there. There's like, I went and became a god. And even simple things like time. Like, what is time to me anymore? It doesn't mean the same thing for me that it means for you. And it's very difficult to now have human relationships, even if I want to still have human relationships. Sort of I guess like a Dr. Manhattan sort of thing, the tension between wanting to stay connected to humanity, but feeling, the call of the cosmic. They could explore that, but they don't. They have, 2 sentences about it, and then that's over with. Brie Larson, it's too bad because she's so great. If she'd won her Oscar in 1995 instead of 2015, like the opportunities would have been there. She could have been like a Jodie Foster, like making serious adult movies, serious thrillers, just movies that, your parents went to see in the 1990s, or she could be in romantic comedy. She's a very funny actress, but it's just those roles don't exist anymore. So she has to do bullshit like this, or like Fast and Furious or King Kong movies or car commercials. So I was going to say it's okay if you like Marvel, but you know what? It's not, because it's their fault. It's not only their fault, but they have their hands are dirty in eliminating the kinds of movies that really talented actresses like Brie Larson should still be making, and that people like my parents should still be going to see on Sunday afternoons. All of that being said, this movie is it's just very annoying. I mean, the forced Marvel whimsy, the quote fun unquote. We're all having fun. We're having silly debates. What's your superhero name? I can't believe that what's your superhero name is a recurring bit in this movie. We had Thor Love and Thunder last year with the, what's your catchphrase going to be? And it's like, there's just nothing else for these people to talk about, because they're not people. The Marvel snarkiness, has been built into the cake from the beginning. And a lot of it comes from Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man 1. But even going back further, even before the MCU existed, X-Men 2000 had the characters wearing just, black costumes. And, James Marsden says, like, what'd you expect? Yellow spandex. And so that's still sort of been the prevailing attitude is hey, don't worry. Like, this isn't like Poindexter shit. Like, you're cool if you watch these movies. We know this is all dumb. We know superhero stuff is dumb. We still want you to watch it, though. One of the ways that attitude manifests itself is the characters hardly ever say their superhero names. They never say their superhero names to each other. If you read comic books or if you watch cartoon series from, the 90s, they are constantly saying Wolverine, to each other rather than Logan. Iron Man rather than Tony. When they say their superhero names in these movies, I always get a little embarrassed. And the one I'm most embarrassed about is Captain Marvel. And partially that's because it's never explained why she's called that, nor is that, like, the words Captain Marvel never get spoken in the movie Captain Marvel. But now in this movie, they say it over and over and over again. Every time I'm just like, oh God. I said I would stop watching Marvel movies because, I had so much goodwill toward it all, 4 years ago. Now when I go back and watch, clips from Avengers Endgame, I'm like, the problems were there at the time. I just didn't see them because, again, I had so much goodwill toward it. And part of me resents it. It's like, why was I rooting so hard for friggin' Disney? I don't know. The goodwill is exhausted. I said I wasn't going to see any more Marvel movies unless, it was something I wanted to see, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I nevertheless went out to see this movie. I think it sucks that this is the first time a black woman has directed a Marvel movie, and DaCosta seemed set up to fail. This movie was never going to be a hit. People are over it at this point. Why couldn't she have gotten this opportunity 10 years ago, 5 years ago? It sucks. So watch her movie Little Woods. Watch Brie Larson and other stuff in Short Term 12, in Room. Yeah, two stars for the Marvels. You don't need to see it. I wish I could spoil stuff and talked about the spoilery stuff. It just annoyed the hell out of me in this movie. But I don't want to do that to you. You can look it all up on your own. But yes, this is a very skippable movie.